This is all we know about the death of Nigerian singer Osinachi Nwachukwu, whose demise was reported on the 8th of April 2022. It was first reported that she had died from throat cancer. However, not long after the news broke, friends and people closest to her revealed to the public that there was no way she died of throat cancer. That in fact, she had died as a result of consistent domestic violence. It was revealed to the whole world that Osinachi suffered series of physical, verbal, and financial abuse in the hands of her husband, Mr. Peter Nwachukwu. And on the said day she was rushed to the hospital, it is believed that another one of his physical abuse had taken place, in which he beat his wife to the point she fell to the ground and then continuously kicked her to her chest. It's not clear if it's immediately, but eventually she would develop serious chest pain, in which he would take her to the hospital. While in the hospital, neither of them told the doctor what really happened to her. She was only complaining of chest pain, and so the doctor treated her for the chest pain. Even though the doctor found some blood clot around her chestal area, the doctor still wasn't sure what could have caused it. He didn't tell the doctor that he kicked his wife in the chest, and she didn't tell the doctor that her husband kicked her in the chest. So obviously the doctor did not know the cause of the blood clot around her chest. Maybe if he did know, she would have been alive today. As at the time of making this video, he has not been arrested nor charged with any crime. And that is because he's still maintaining that she died of throat cancer. Even though Osinachi's elder sister has confirmed that the doctor told her that her sister Osinachi died due to blood clot around her chestal area, it is still uncertain if the blood clot was caused by his domestic abuse, despite the rumors going around that he beats her. Now, just to be clear, the doctors did not say she died from beating. They only pointed out that she may have died from the blood clot around the chestal area. The story that he beat her to death is coming from those who know her and those she told about her experiences in the hands of her husband. And I think that is why the police has not yet taken any actions regarding him. Her death has eventually sparked the conversation regarding domestic violence and violence against women. Now the biggest question is, why did she choose to stay, whereas she could have left? A lot of people are blaming it on religion. A lot of people are blaming it on society. Some people have pointed out that if she had left her marriage, her gospel music career would have suffered, because many Christians would not want to patronize her music since she is now divorced, as a lot of churches frown against women who are divorced. Some other people have said she was worried about what people would say, which is pretty much the same as her career suffering due to her divorce. And whereas all of these are possible, nothing changes the fact that she chose to stay, despite having the capability to stand on her own. She was not financially dependent on her husband. She was the breadwinner of the family. She was educated. She was talented. He doesn't have a job. She brings in all the money. This was a woman who was capable of standing on her own. This was a woman who did not have to take rubbish from her husband. But according to her sister, she was the one who chose to stay. And her reasons were not because she was afraid of what would happen to her career. According to her sister, Osinachi was not worried about what people would say. She was a very educated woman. She's not a village woman. She is not poor. She barely even goes home to the village, talk more of being worried about what her village people would say. This is not the Nollywood movies of 2010 or 2005. This woman was fully aware of her situation, but she chose to stay. Despite her sister saying that they told her to separate. They encouraged her to separate from her husband, not divorce. Since divorce was such a big word, they encouraged her to separate, move to another place. But it was said that Osinachi said that she was going to stay in a marriage because she believed her husband would change. So this is a case of my husband would change. This is a case of she will be able to pray her husband into being a better man. And I'm not making this up, because these were the words of her elder sister who spoke to Vanguard newspaper just a few days ago. And despite the fact that she told a few people what she was going through, or a few people noticed what she was going through, she still held a lot back. This was a woman who thought that one day God will open the eyes of her husband and he would change towards her. Even while she was in the hospital, in her last days, it was said her twin sister came to see her in the hospital, but the husband was rude to the sister and could not wait to kick the sister out of the ward. It was said that Osinachi even encouraged her sister to leave so that she doesn't annoy the husband. often at times when we hear about domestic violence, we assume the woman doesn't have her own source of income. We assume the woman doesn't have her own house. We assume the woman is a poor market woman in the market with 9 and 8 children and a drunkard, deadbeat husband who doesn't take care of her. But look at this picture here. Look at this picture behind me. Look at all these women in this photograph. These are just a few domestic violence stories that we have covered on this page since the beginning of this year. In barely 5 months, we have talked about 5 different women who have been killed by their partners after enduring series, months, years of domestic abuses. Osinachi's case is not unique. It's a common trend. Every single woman you see in this picture were breadwinners. This was a lady killed in Abuja earlier this year by her fiancé, and she was the breadwinner in that relationship. She was the one who rented the house that they stayed in. She was the one even paying for her own bride price. And she was the one looking forward to sponsoring her own wedding, only to end up getting beaten, maltreated, and eventually murdered by her fiancé, who stole her ATM card and planned to run out of the country with it. This was the lady killed in Port Harcourt some few months back. Equally a pastor in her own right. I think her husband was also a pastor. She was the principal of her school. She had her own school, one she built with her own money before she even met her husband. Without her husband, she could take care of herself and take care of her children. But she too stayed in her marriage, and when she was asked why she was staying, she said she wanted to show examples to the people in church. She too was hoping that one day God would open the eyes of her husband to stop maltreating her. This is MC Bono's wife, the story we are still not even done with. Beaten to the point she lost her pregnancy and also lost her life. Did I say pregnancy? She lost her baby. Was she capable of taking care of herself? Definitely. I mean, part of the news was that she borrowed her husband 2 million naira. So clearly, she was a millionaire. But somehow, she stayed in a marriage where she was constantly being beaten and mistreated. She stayed. She could have left, but she stayed. This is a story we talked about last week. The woman who returned from Scotland only to be doused with petrol by her husband over her own properties. Chinyere had money. Chinyere could build a house by herself. Chinyere took herself out of this country to sponsor her own master's degree. Chinyere got herself residency for her family in Scotland to live and work. On her own, she could take care of a nation. She was educated, she was exposed. Everything that we all know about domestic violence, she knew them. Religion was not tying her down. Society was not tying her down. She was in Scotland. Yet, she was still a victim of one of the most brutal form of domestic violence that I have ever come across. Doused with petrol and set ablaze along with her younger brother by her deadbeat husband. And now today, we are talking about gospel singer Osinachi, whose talent and voice is racking in millions upon millions. She sang in Igbo, but she could speak English fluently. She was educated, she was smart. Everything that we know about domestic abuse, she was aware of them. She was not illiterate. She knew the situation she was in, but she chose to stay, hoping that her husband would change. We can sit here and debate whether or not religion is the cause, or society is the cause, or the church is the cause. But one thing that is a fact is that these women chose to remain in that situation they were in. It's not as if these men woke up one day and killed their wives. They stayed in the beating. They stayed throughout the abuses. Only God knows why they were still there, but they were there. Were they capable of being on their own? Yes, they were. And they were all equally young too. And if we are going to be particular here, they were all pretty women. Because I've heard a lot of women say they can't leave their marriage because they are old, they feel ugly, which man is going to look at them? All these women who have been beaten and killed by their partners in this picture here, they were beautiful. They were young women. No one was up to 50 here. It's not as if they couldn't end their marriage and still find good and eligible, honest, caring men to still marry them. They could have easily found other men, but somehow they chose to remain in their abusive marriages. So what is happening? What is going on? I mean, as sad as this picture is behind me, as sad as it is to know that every single woman behind me is dead because of their partner, my biggest fear is who is next. Who? Mind you, these are all the stories we covered Imagine all the ones we didn't cover. Imagine all the ones that didn't make it to the news. Imagine all the ones that happened to people who are not known, who don't even have internet, who can't reach out to Instablog. Imagine those ones. Imagine the ones who died in silence and their husband lied that they died of cancer, or they died of childbirth, or they died of throat, whatever. These are just the ones that made it to the news. These are just the ones that we caught. Think about the other women who have been killed in their marriages, but their death was covered up. Imagine how many more women are currently in relationship that is similar to these ones, just waiting for them to make it to the news. I mean, we can't help these women at this point. They can't leave the marriage, it's too late. But who is next? Who are we going to be talking about next? And next is not even looking like it's far along, because all of these stories are just weeks apart from each other. So how many weeks more before another woman makes it to the news? How many weeks more before another successful woman who can easily take care of herself and her children make it to the news for being beaten and killed by her deadbeat husband? Who is next?